The David Washington Show welcomes a good friend from my Chicago upbringing, Robert Montgomery. Robert Montgomery is the Executive Director of Historic Pullman Foundation, or HPF. Prior to working with HPF, Robert worked over 20 years in nonprofit leadership and development for organizations like Urban Muslim Minority Alliance, Peoria Friendship House of Christian Service, Boys and Girls Clubs, and United Way. Robert started his fundraising career as a minister for the Chicago Church of Christ, where he was taught the art of relationship management. From there, he used his public speaking and training skills to raise millions of dollars for various charities. Robert earned his Bachelor of Arts in Urban Planning at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign and his Master of Urban Planning and Policy at the University of Illinois at Chicago. His vision is to develop a blueprint for success that helps transform underprivileged communities through self-sufficiency and mutual inspiration. We welcome Robert to the David Washington Show.
All right, Robert, welcome to the David Washington Show again. How are you, my friend?
I'm good. Look at you. You just changed clothes just that quick.
Boom, boom, boom. The wonders and the magic of AI. How about that? We're embracing it here at J in Washington. And you'll see more of the AI, not in this particular show, but moving forward and all the content that we're dealing with, that we're producing, creating, distributing. It's an innovation that we're embracing.
Awesome.
Excellent. So, Robert, we've known each other for, 30 years plus, 35 years, 40 years?
Almost 50 years.
Oh, good Lord. I'm feeling old. Let's make sure we cut that out of the show. 50. Oh, my goodness, Rob. That's a long time. That was back when, we were calling you Bobby or Bob.
Yeah, absolutely. Bobby.
Yeah.
My family still calls me Bobby.
They still do? Well, it's family.
Yeah.
Your friends show a little bit more dignity and call you Robert now that we are in our mid-50s. Excellent. So now that we introduce you, this is going to be a great show starting off. Now that we introduce you to the David Washington Show audience, let's get right into it. You visited
Let's do that.
You visited here in Florida about 2 weeks ago, right? And
it was last weekend.
It was last weekend?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely getting old. There's going to be a lot of old jokes in this podcast. Okay, so last weekend you spent some time here in Florida. We spent some time talking and talking about whatever came up and seeing the usual sights here. However, one of the more fascinating stories that you were telling me about was the one about your great-grandfather, if I understand correctly.
Actually, my grandfather.
Okay.
So someone suggested I've been following this story of my grandfather. I've been fascinated with it. And my family is the Montgomery family, but whenever we would get together with the rest of my grandfather's family, they were the Cowens family from Lexington, Mississippi. I never knew how come the rest of our family is Cowens and we're just these Montgomerys from my grandfather all the way down to me. But after my grandfather passed, my grandmother started telling me about my grandfather's history and how he was the illegitimate child of a man in the town his name was George Montgomery. My grandfather's name was George Montgomery.
Okay.
And George Montgomery, my great grandfather, didn't claim George Montgomery, my grandfather, as his son. My great grandmother named him George Montgomery, I guess, to spite the man who was married. George Montgomery was married, and he already had a son named George Montgomery. So for her to come along and have this child and name him George Montgomery was sort of a thorn in his flesh in his town, because obviously there's a George Montgomery walking around, but he's not a part of your family. He's a part of this lady's family. Obviously, you had sex outside of your marriage with this young lady and had an illegitimate child with this this young lady. My great grandmother went on to get married to a man who had the last name of Cowens, and they had more kids. So my grandfather had brothers and sisters, or he had brothers and then he had one sister, but they were all Cowens. And so that's what the confusion was. So I got in this ancestry.com, and I've been looking up piecing together my family tree, but obviously I don't know any of the people past my grandfather, other than the fact that I know that his father's name was George Montgomery, and he had a half brother named George Montgomery. Long story short, like you mentioned, I was a minister in the church. This was back in the 90s. And one of the people who came to my church, one of my members, was a guy named Montgomery Prophet. We're about the same age.
Okay.
And his mom, I didn't know it, but her maiden name was Montgomery.
Okay.
And she would put on plays. She was a part of some theatrical thing in Schaumburg, Illinois. And she would invite me out to be a part of her plays every year because I was funny. And one year she brought a lot of her family from Mississippi, the Montgomerys, who obviously we were interacting in the rehearsals and everything. And it came out that my family is from Lexington, Mississippi, and these people were from Lexington, Mississippi.
Uh-oh.
They knew George Montgomery, my grandfather's half brother. He had been passed away, but they knew who he was, and he had relatives under him. So that was my family, but a disconnected family. So since that time, me and Montgomery have called each other cousin because we're of that connection. But I still don't know much about his family. We spent some time trying to figure that out with some of his relatives who are still alive.
Sure.
But a lot of people don't remember a lot of things. The younger people don't know a lot of things. And so we're all in the same boat. So that's the journey I'm on, David, trying to figure out my past. I would love to trace my family history back to Africa.
Okay.
Not sure if that's possible.
Really, on your father's side?
Or on my mother's side. Even with
really?
I was an adult when I found out, maybe a teenager, when I found out my grandmother was not my biological grandmother. My mother's actual mother passed away when she was 8 years old.
Oh, wow.
So my grandfather remarried, and the woman who helped him raise his 3 children, one of which was my mom, that was my grandmother. All my life, that was grandma.
Right.
And I guess that generation, the parents didn't say much or tell the children too many details about reality. But once I became an adult, different adults in my family started spilling the tea or the beans piecemeal. So I've been piecing this together, and there's a few of my mom passed away, in 2020, but she still has 2 brothers. I'm slowly but surely getting little pieces of history from them. So I really need to just sit down with the older people in my family and take notes, pull out this ancestry.com and just try to fill in this family tree as much as I possibly can.
Right. Robert, where are your maternal relatives originally from? Do you know, like with your father's side?
So maternal, that's my mother's side, right?
That's correct. Maternal.
So my mom's family is from, she grew up in a little town called Rose Hill. Okay. And shortly after her mom passed, my grandfather moved them up to Chicago. And that was part of another bit of history is both my grandparents moved up to Chicago around the same time in the late 50s or early 60s. And that's when a lot of Black people were moving out of the South up to the North, the Great Migration. And that's where my grandfather met his new wife here in Chicago. And they raised my mom and her two brothers. Coincidentally, in the same neighborhood that my father's parents moved to, and they went to high school together, and they were high school sweethearts.
Fascinating. So Rose Hill, Mississippi.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Fascinating, Robert. To kind of speak to a little bit more about your family, I remember both your parents.
Mm-hmm.
Your father was, former military. That's correct.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He was
82nd
Marine.
Airborne.
Okay, 82nd Airborne. Okay, and your mother is a nurse.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember your father being, in all respect, boisterous and very commanding personality, and hilariously seriously comedic in a way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it was such a contrast between my father and your dad. And I think
Mm-hmm.
maybe once they met, and I can't remember how it was. Maybe they did not. Maybe I thought about it or dreamt about it. And your mother was very demure, as they would say nowadays. She was very ladylike and very feminine. And it appeared that she was like the glue that held the family together.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
My mom was very wise, and she
Yeah.
didn't. She laughed. My mother laughed a lot because my
Yes, she
dad
did.
was always making people laugh. So
Yes.
um, we would all constantly. You knew my father was very social, so
Yes, he
whenever there was a
was.
weekend, there were people in our house,
Yes.
and he was always cooking out in the backyard and
Yeah.
playing a little transistor radio and talking loud and laughing. So that was a huge part of my life. And just being naive, I didn't know that there were families that lived differently than we did until I was maybe a teenager.
Right.
So I thought I knew everybody didn't have a father because I had cousins who didn't have their father in their home, but their father was part of their life. They just didn't live together. But I didn't know that there were people who didn't have father. So I took my relationship with my dad for granted.
Mm.
He taught me a lot, and he didn't sugarcoat it. He didn't spoon
Yes.
feed it to me. He basically pulled a garden hose and made me drink from the water fountain of life. So that was his strategy. You gonna learn this. You gonna learn today.
He was like that. He had a very commanding personality, and he did not, he did not cut around the corners or anything, or beat around the corner. He was very straightforward. And I will always remember, before we would enter the house, we will always see your dad, and he'll ask me and our mutual friend Doug, my brother, what were we up to? What did we learn for the day? And he was dead serious. So I don't know about Douglas, but I know for me, I better come with a straight answer, and for fear of being clowned, But you had great family. It was always a joy to visit. And you are the youngest of two siblings, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have an older sister. She's a year and a half older than me, but and naturally she was a bully all my life. So I learned how to deal with bullies from day one. So it wasn't bullies at school was no big deal to me.
And she too had a very strong personality too.
Yes,
Please give
yes.
my regards to her when you see her next.
Okay.
One of the things that you just touched on, Rob, was your relationship with your father. And your father modeled, very strong masculine attitude, behavior, what a man should be doing for his family, for himself, for his children, and so forth and so on. And that, from our conversations and what I see, that kind of plays out with your two sons. But specifically what stands out is your relationship with your niece. you spend a lot of time, quality time with your niece, and it's such a great. It's great to see uncle and his niece through time just spend really great time together, modeling, great Black male presence.
Yeah, she was exactly the same age as Alex. Alex was born on April 4th. She was born on April 15th in the same year. So, as a little girl, she would always say that she was Alex's twin and that
Yeah.
she was my daughter. And honestly, she's actually my ex-wife's sister's daughter, but they were family. I mean, her sister was family, like my
Okay.
own sister. And I was married for 20 years, so
Okay.
there was no line between even though we're not blood relatives,
Right.
I treated them like they were my blood relative, and to this day she's my sister. And so her daughter, she has 3 daughters.
Oh,
It
okay.
just so happens that Angel was the oldest, and she was always wanting to be around BJ and Alex. So I didn't push her away. I didn't shun her. I didn't make her feel like she wasn't part of the family. It was easy because she always pushed herself on us. Um,
Hmm.
but it's a joy. I mean, to have her a part of our family and as a part of my life, because sons, when you get older, sons, they got their own life. They gotta feed their family. They gotta make sure they have a responsibility. So
Traditional sense,
it's
yes.
yeah. So daughters are the ones who are going to take care of you when you're older. They're the ones that are going to make sure you're okay. And so
I
I
should have had
definitely,
daughters, huh?
yeah, I definitely get calls from Angel
Yeah.
very, very frequently. And so when she was a little girl, our church used to have these daddy-daughter like dances.
Right.
And I would take her and my sister's daughter to the daddy-daughter dance. And she made sure that after that experience, she wanted to do that every year. So I would take her on a date every year. A couple times as adult. I mean, she's done with college now. She just graduated
Right.
in December, but now she has a job. And so one time she took me out on a daddy-daughter date. But this
Oh, that's
last
great.
year, a couple weeks ago, I paid for it. So it's back on me. So that, I guess that was a one-time thing.
Always a good male role model, right?
Yeah. But it's very important. I mean, I don't physically actually have a blood daughter,
Correct.
but I do understand that this is a cruel world. It's a harsh world, and women in this world, although in our society we like to look at women as equals, but physically they're not equal. Emotionally, we're not the same. We're just not the same. There's no
Right.
way we can say that we're
Agree.
equal. Not to say that one is better than the other, but we're
No,
just not the same. And so our women need to be protected.
to
And
be under our cover.
yeah, there's a under our cover.
What's wrong with saying
There's
that?
that sounds so cultish, but
Voltage.
they need to be under our cover. No,
It's just
what I didn't want to get on. What I'm trying to say is that as a man, there's something that God put in each and every one of us, that when there's a woman we're responsible for, there's something inside of us that compels us to make sure that they're okay.
That's true. That's very true. Um, let's segue into the book. You were mentioning the book, and I was thinking that this would be a good time to discuss where does the book start off. I read the first chapter of it.
Hmm.
What's the book about?
It's about nonprofit management, David. You know that my career in nonprofit kind of it organically became this thing where I was a career fundraiser for a few organizations. I started with United Way in 1999,
Mm,
and worked my way up to vice president of marketing and development for Boys and Girls Club. And
mhm.
then my first job as a nonprofit executive director was in Peoria, Illinois, at a place called Friendship House.
I remember.
And then I moved back to Chicago to run a place called UMA, Urban Muslim Minority Alliance.
Mm-hmm.
Friendship House was a Christian organization. UMA was a Muslim organization, but neither one of them had any prerequisites. Actually, Friendship House did have a prerequisite that I had to be a Christian to run the organization, but UMA didn't have such restrictions. None of the staff, when I got there, none of the staff was Muslim, and probably none of the people we served were Muslim. That changed a little over time. And then this opportunity, I moved back to my old our old neighborhood. We grew up on the same block. And when my mom passed away, me and my sister inherited this house. And then, but we didn't want it to sit vacant, and we didn't want to sell it. We didn't want to rent it out. We both agreed that this forever will be the Montgomery residence. And once me and my sister pass away, it'll pass on to the grandkid, my parents' grandkids. I only had three, my two sons and my my sister's daughter.
Right.
Then when they pass on, it'll pass on to the next generation and the next generation. It's a family home. So I've been here for 4 years. And
4 years. Wow.
I was running UMA UMA was an hour and a half away from here. And I was running that for the last 3 years that I was there. And this opportunity came up at Historic Pullman Foundation, was literally right across the train tracks. I could walk there, and it was a no-brainer.
Right.
It's right here in the community. It's allowing me to build relationships in this community. I've always been deeply rooted here, even though I left for college and then moved. So I was gone, 30 years?
Yeah. It was that long, Rob.
Yeah.
Rob, sorry to jump in. You're back, after 30 years. And what's changed in our neighborhood?
So there's a lot because the Pullman is a national park, it's attracted or opened some eyeballs to some developers. And Chicago is all about development. It's a huge city, 3 million people. Plus, there's another 7 million that live outside in the Chicagoland area. So it's a feeder. It's a true sense of a city with a downtown with the resources. It's like the downtown of Chicago is the sun, and everything benefits from the downtown of Chicago. And the more they develop the downtown of Chicago, the more vibrant this city and this region becomes.
Sure.
And I'm not sure if you've noticed, but downtown is totally different than it was when we were in high school. There's a lot of people living down there. There's a lot of great things to do down there. Some people live there, don't even have cars. It's similar to the way some people, live in New York, and a much smaller version of New York downtown. And as a result, developers here are constantly looking for fertile ground. And in urban planning, I have 2 urban planning degrees. The best place to look is in depressed neighborhood, because the values of those neighborhoods have been depressed for decades.
Okay.
So my parents bought this house in the 70s, early 70s, maybe $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 for the house.
I remember.
It's only worth upwards, maybe 200,000. That's not a lot of growth in 50 years.
That's true.
Compared to like a Naperville, whereas in 20 years or 10 years, you could see that type of growth. And so this is fertile ground for development, because the prices are super low, and the property taxes are super low too. So it's like low hanging fruit. Plus, the federal government has pumped hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars into the national park, which brought some national food chains like Chick-fil-A and Culver's. You'd be hard pressed to find a Chick-fil-A and a Culver's in a Black neighborhood in this country. But because of the development that's happening here, there's a hotel coming. There's a lot of industry over there. The city is pumped or committed to, I think, 10 billion. I can't remember the number,
Oh, wow.
to extend the red line. They've been talking about extending the red line
Excellent.
since we were children. And
Exactly.
now they've got the money to do it, billions of dollars, and that's coming right through Roseland and Rosemore. Also, the city is pumping billions of dollars into the Roseland Hospital. So they're looking to take Roseland Hospital to another level and possibly making it a trauma center. I believe that's the plan. It's
Wow.
like I can't remember exactly, but
Right.
they're the government is pumping billions of dollars into this community, and so that's attracting a lot of private investors just looking at the area and trying to figure out how can they get in on the ground level. So the next 5 years, you're going to see people. We growing up here, we didn't see joggers. Joggers is something you see on the north side.
Right.
You don't see joggers in middle class or lower middle class Black communities. But
Really.
in the next few years, you're going to see some joggers in this community. It's attracting people who want to purchase on the ground level and take the ride up to the top. It's just like investing. You buy
Right.
low and sell high. This is low. So a lot of people, I'm sure anything that's available right now, people are buying it
Right.
and fixing it up and or sitting on it and waiting for the area to slowly rise. But this is going to be a quick rise.
Right. So, Rob, the red line is the one that goes down the center of the Dan Ryan,
Exactly.
and they're extending that.
Yes. So it's at some point it's gonna ramp up, go over 95th Street, come back down and attach to an existing
Rail
freight,
line.
rail line that goes when you go down 103rd Street. If you
Correct.
go west past Michigan and you keep going, you run into some train tracks.
Yes.
It's going to run along those train tracks.
Fascinating, Robert.
All the way out to what is the name of that housing project on 130th and
Algid
Garden?
Gardens. Yes.
I think that's, if I'm not correct, that's where your mom grew up, right?
That's correct. Mom
Okay.
grew up in Algid Gardens. That's correct. That is fascinating, Robert. I would never have thought that we would get to the point where the train line would extend that far, and there would be the wherewithal to think about it coming that far south. That's a boon for growth.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right
now, if you look at Michigan Avenue, which is where that line is going to intersect just south of 115th Street, it's a ghost town. There hasn't been, I mean, since when we were little children, it was at the end of a boom. And we witnessed that place just like that, just drying up. Where Gately's was a huge department store that I know my mom took me there all the time. And I used to love going to their toy department, and they used to sell donuts in the basement. I love those donuts. And then that donut shop across the street is still there, and they have not remodeled since the 60s or 50s or whatever. Looks
I
exactly
need to go back for some memories. I bet you they're multi-millionaires, if not billionaires.
But all of this, to answer your question, the book is basically about my experience as a nonprofit executive. I've learned a lot of different things. I've written a lot of different things down. I've got 13 chapters written. I'm in the process of editing each chapter by chapter. I just finished chapter 9. I'm editing chapter 10 right now. So I only got 3 chapters left after chapter 10. And then shortly after that, I'm going to produce this book, and it'll be an ebook up on Amazon pretty soon. So it's called Nonprofit Management. I'm not sure exactly what the title is going to be, but that's going to probably be in the title. And oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, how much of your past life, your youth, and your family histories is in this book?
Well, this book has really nothing to do with that search that I've been doing with my family, trying to figure out my family tree.
Okay.
It's more so what I learned as an executive at nonprofits.
So more
Um,
lessons as a professional versus life lessons.
yeah,
Uh,
exactly,
as a youth.
exactly.
Okay. All right.
And
Good.
they are, most of these are life lessons, like uh, things that seem like common sense, but when you
Okay.
apply it to business, it takes a nuance of drawing that line. And
Okay.
one of the concepts in the book is called co-signing. What I realized a long
Yes.
time ago is that when I go into a board meeting or any type of meeting where there's several people present and I'm presenting a concept or I'm presenting something that I want to change or to do in the future, it always helps for me to, before I go in that meeting, meet with some people who are going to be in that meeting to get them to get their buy-in on the concept,
Correct.
or to at least have some type of ownership of the concept. So
Hmm.
I would run it by them, get their input, get them to add something to it. And then in the meeting, just like when you go buy a car or you buy a house and your credit's not that good, you need a cosigner. So in these meetings, I realized that my credit may or may not be 800 credit score. So I got to make sure that I got a cosigner in these meetings, because what I realize is that if Bob, Dick, and Jane have already signed on to this concept
Okay.
and they're able to speak on it in the meeting, everybody in the meeting becomes more comfortable with the concept. But if it's just me, depending on where my credit is with each individual in the room,
Correct.
I I I might not stand a chance, and I'm definitely going to get a lot of questions, and I might not even have the answers right then and there. But
This,
this is a concept that's been working. It pretty much works for me when I go into meetings.
have you mentored others, and have you shared this practice of co-signing with those you've mentored?
I have not shared this professionally. Like, I don't have a professional consulting firm,
Mhm.
and I don't have any clients that I consult. So the only people that I share this with is people that I'm friends with and people
Mhm.
who I have relationships with, like you and Doug. And but no, to answer your question, I have not mentored somebody to do this in their practice.
Okay. All right. And as you were saying about the book, your experience or your habit or your practice of co-signing would play significantly in your book. And
Exactly. Exactly. It's one of the things in one of the chapters that I talk about extensively.
right.
Uh,
We were,
Another thing I talk about is in my line of work, I do a lot of public speaking.
mhm.
Um, and one of the things I learned when I was a minister, every Sunday I would have to get up and give a message to a congregation. And
Right.
what I realized is that most weeks I'm basically winging it. I'm coming up with a concept. I'm writing it down on paper. I'm doing my research, but so most of the work goes into the thought process and the message. But I never really did the process of saying the things out loud. So when you think something in your head, it can sound like this is the most profound thing that I've ever thought in my life. But once it leaves your mouth and it's in the atmosphere, sometimes you have to step back and say, what was I thinking? That wasn't really all that smart.
I've been there.
So a lot of times what I realized, since being a minister, I will go and see people preach. I will go and see people say stuff. And it usually happens at funerals, because the people that get up to talk at funerals, they're not professional public speakers. So they're not polished, and they give a message. And I can tell that this is, when it's coming out of their mouth right now, this is the first time it's ever left their mouth. And even they can hear as they're saying it. You can tell when people are hearing it for the first time and realizing that this is not as profound as I thought it was going to be when I wrote it down. And you can actually see them witnessing that first stage. And maybe the average person doesn't really care or doesn't look that detailed into a message. But as somebody who gives speeches and somebody who talks publicly on a regular basis, one of the things that I realize is that if I don't practice saying this during my process of writing this, then I'm going to be in that situation over and over and over again, where sometimes I'm embarrassed while I'm saying what I thought was going to be a smart thing to say.
So to avoid this, and one of the concepts that you were talking to me about is your habit of taking copious notes, lots of notes.
Well, copious notes has its own thing, but this concept is when you're going to do public speaking, make sure you either get in front of a mirror or you get in front of some people, but you got to say it out loud. Whatever you're going to say it out loud 2 to 3 times. And if it sounds as profound as you thought it was going to sound, run with it. But
right.
I guarantee you, 9 times out of 10, it's not. And you're going to enhance what you are saying.
So cussing is not going to make it as profound as you think it's going to be.
Sometimes it is. Sometimes it is.
That's true. It's an art. I go back to some of my earlier podcast episodes about maybe 2 years ago. And I'm thinking, okay, let me see what I was talking about. This particular topic looks interesting. And then I hear what I have to say. I say, yeah, it sounded pretty insignificant at the time, but boy, did that age poorly.
So your point about the copious notes, that's a different thing. That's in the book too. Copious notes is in the book too. Early on in my career, I was a CFC director and I worked for United Way, but I ran the CFC. CFC is a combined federal campaign. Back in the day, the federal government would hire local United Ways to run their workplace giving campaigns. And so all of their workplace giving campaigns mirrored whatever United Way was doing. Maybe 30 years ago, 20 something years ago, maybe 20 years ago, the United Ways all over the country have made the decision to step away from running CFCs because they take so much resources. And the reason why they used to do it is because you can claim whatever they raised in your number. And so they started to see that it was, even though we can claim that number, it's really not benefiting us financially to run it. So, but I ran that campaign for 2 years, and it was a very fast-paced campaign, a lot of moving points. So I was baptized by the fire, and my boss, her name was Elaine Moy. I'll never forget her. She used to be the most calm, cool, and collective person I ever met. She always had some tea or whatever. I think it was coffee or something hot. Yeah. She would just drink her tea, and she was never frazzled. And that's what I realized, was that every meeting she had, she was taking these detailed notes, and then those notes would drive her other meetings. Like when I had my one-on-one with her, she would already have a list of things that she had gathered from other meetings that were things that I was supposed to take care of. And she would just go down the list. So did you do this? Then we would talk about it, and she'd scratch it off her list. And if I didn't finish it, she'd write some more notes about it, and it would end up on the next list. So I was living my life by the seat of my pants. I wasn't taking notes. I wasn't living with a schedule. I was just a few years removed from college. So I didn't know, they didn't teach me this stuff in college. It was sink or swim.
That's right.
But things you would think are common sense, they're not common sense. It took me to fall flat on my face a lot to stumble and fall a lot, to fail a lot, to learn these things. And it was just from observing other people. This lady seemed like she had it all together. And I just had to figure out what is her secret sauce? And I figured it out. It was her notes that she was taking. So ever since then, I always take a lot of notes, and those notes dictate what I'm going to do after this meeting and in future meetings with other people.
Right. So, Rob, that is a good segue into the conversation of being organized and the habit of repetition. You kind of touch on the habit of repetition. How does that play into your both professional and personal lives?
Well, I'm even sure what you're talking. I know what organized me is, and we talked about repetition. I don't remember us having this conversation about organization and repetition. I do know.
Does it matter? This is an interview. I'm not going to just give you, cookies. I'm not giving you, I'm not making it easy for you. We haven't even gotten through half of the questions I have for you.
But I don't have a specific chapter on repetition, so I'm not even sure where you got that from.
It's just a question. It's a question I'm posing to you. Is organization key to doing what you do successfully?
Absolutely.
Is there like you said, you take hopeless notes, and then you apply it to whatever plan you have. So how, and you said from college to now, you've drastically changed how you go about your business. How does organization, for our listeners and viewers who are maybe young professionals who want to get that edge, how does organization and repeating, like in the mirror, like you said, hearing yourself taught, being comfortable with hearing yourself, how does that play into success?
Well, practice makes purpose. Perfect. We all have a job to do. And if we don't practice, if there's no part of our professional life that involves any sort of practice, then we're basically winging it. Whatever we're doing, we're winging it. And it's impossible to do whatever you're doing at a high level if you're winging it. So it's got to be when you're doing your job, or when it's game time, this has to be the result of some type of practice that you're doing. Okay. And I do know that organization is huge in this, because and we're very fortunate now because we have tools that make us organized. And one thing that's a disconnect with our age is we're used to being organized in a certain way, and it's very manual. And even when we use electronic aids, we try to fit the aid into our manual thinking to force it to be manual, which makes it less efficient and effective. And that's something I'm learning now, especially with AI. So I have a really good friend who is an AI guru. He owns a company that was purchased by another company, but he still works at his company as an employee. And his expertise is AI. So he's been trying to help me understand AI. And I keep calling it a bot, and he said it's not a bot. It's an agent. And
that's correct.
What's the difference?
Semantics, right? This is 2025, Robert. It's all the same. It's semantics.
He's helping me wrap my mind around having a person in my presence who can help me do pretty much anything. Or I can create a person who can help me do something specific, and then create another person who can help me do something specific. And these people have at their fingertips, within lightning speed, all of the information on the internet.
That's correct.
But these people are not the smartest people in the world. They're really good at finding information. They're
Correct.
really good at regurgitating information, but they have the emotion. They're not actual people, and
Correct.
so they don't have they're not going to respond like a regular person. They
Right.
just have a lot of resources that nobody else has. So they're perfect assistants. They're perfect people who can do certain tasks.
Correct.
They're perfect at helping you write certain specific things because they will gather information for you that will take you months to gather if you were
That's
to try
correct.
to do it on your own.
And the agents need that human touch. And that's
Mhm.
what I found in my work with different AIs. I use on a regular basis maybe 3 to 5 AIs, depending on the type of research or information that I'm seeking. For instance, there's one AI that I cannot use for my political work. And then there's one AI that I can use for long form, thorough analysis that pretty much gives me what I'm looking for. But I always know if I'm going to publish that content, I need to add that human element, my touch to it
Mhm.
to make it more palatable to those individuals consuming that content to know that okay, this isn't some sterile re-edition of the information that is being told to them that's available on the internet, but my personal, spin, expertise, knowledge, emotion is in that work. Are you fascinated by the AI revolution?
I am, and I feel like I'm just touching the tip of the iceberg because I still can't explain it like what this thing is. It
Right.
doesn't make I keep telling them this doesn't make any sense to me.
Embrace it. just embrace all of it. It's fast. We're living in a fascinating time, Robert, and
Mhm.
with the advent of these AI agents, artificial generative intelligence is what these agents are. It's just amazing of what we're able to resolve
Mhm.
with this information. Um, Also, in your book, we kind of talked about this. As the executive director, you also have to deal with personalities, whether it's an AI personality or the personalities of the people that are your subordinates or the public that you have to engage with or board members. What's How do you keep that balance without, being emotionally drained?
Well, I constantly have to tell myself this is just business, and I have to teach that to the people that I mentor, the people that I manage, is that this is just business. We're dealing with bottom line, money in and money out. So I have to manage this in such a way that we're as efficient as we possibly can be. But the relationships we build, the business dealings that we have it's really just business, and I can't take any of this personally. And so there's a huge, especially in the nonprofit world, there's a huge push or there's a it's easy to feel like this is personal, especially when you have disagreements with people.
Right.
Disagreements are supposed to happen because we're all different people. So I'm not going to do things the way you would do it, and nobody's going to do things the way I would do it. But I have to have some sort of maturity to say, well, I can trust this person to do it whatever way they think they should do it. And if there's an issue, we can talk about the small details or the concept or whatever. But if I entrust, my
Mhm.
job is to entrust people to take care of situations. Should they come to me with questions? Yeah, absolutely. But I can't micromanage. The more I micromanage, or the
Right.
more someone tries to micromanage, the less efficient this organization is going to be. And we just don't have a whole lot of people to be inefficient. We're very small. Most nonprofits are very small. And so you can't afford to micromanage people. An accountant helped me to see this in a financial sense.
Yeah.
When I made the decision to get an assistant, like we can't afford an assistant, but he said you can't afford not to have an assistant, because you're forcing this organization to pay X amount of dollars, which is what they pay you per hour, for a job that could be done by somebody who makes X amount of dollars, which is what an assistant would make. And so you're robbing this organization because you're making them pay top dollar for a task that only requires a small dollar. It's the same thing as if a law firm, you hire a law firm and you're getting these huge bills, and you look behind the scenes and you see that the partners are doing all of the paperwork and all of the media work. And you're like, wait a minute, no, can't you get some paralegals to do that little stuff?
Exactly.
And you do the big stuff. And that's how a lot of people run nonprofits, is they do everything. They do the big stuff and the little stuff. But the less big stuff I can do, the less money we're going to bring in. The more big stuff I can do, the more money we're going to bring in.
Right, right. I don't know if you hear behind me, there's a horrible storm coming through Central Florida.
Really?
It's coming down pretty hard. And if the power goes out, please forgive me. We'll just pick up where we left off.
Okay.
But
okay.
We're pretty good here in this part of Orlando.
You should get on to the love part, Dr. Love.
Well, that's a good segue. And unless there's any more that you want to say about the book, we're looking forward to you publishing it. When do you expect the publication?
I'll be done editing it at the end of April, and I've never published a book before, so I'm not sure how long that process takes. But if it doesn't take much to publish, it'll be out shortly after, sometime in May. But if it takes a long time, I might have to push it to June, July, or August or something like that.
So you're self-publishing. That's awesome.
Well, I'm looking at some options through some, like, it looks like Amazon has a really good, easy, user-friendly way to publish your own book.
There's a resource that I'll share with you later where you can self-publish across the United States and internationally.
Okay.
All right. So just remind me. So Dr. Love Chicago.
Yes, Dr. Love.
Well, did you hear that?
No, I didn't.
The lightning hit something.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It lit up the house there. So
it's okay to be scared, David. It's okay to be scared, David.
Again, there are only three things that I'm scared of, and it's definitely not thunder and lightning. Okay.
It obviously is, because you jumped like I thought you were going to have a heart attack when you heard that. The normal person would have just kept it going, wouldn't have said nothing about the lightning.
No, I'm just
because you're so scared. You're so scared of the lightning and thunder. It's okay, David. It's okay. Why don't you go get your little bear and hug the bear while we're having an interview, so it can calm your spirit.
I see your father is coming out in you right now. The comedic father.
Oh, your viewers don't know that you have a little bear. You call him Buddy Bear. They don't know that.
How did I know that this interview would just slide into really bad humor? Anyway, speaking of bad humor, Dr. Love Chicago.
Well,
Where did that come from?
Chicago. Dr. Love came. It sprung out of
Sure it did.
my heart being broke for the first time in my life at the age of 45 years old.
Ouch. Calculate.
Honestly, I should have. Everybody should get their heart broken
Oh, yeah.
before they get married,
Sure.
before they venture off into finding out what does love mean, and because marriage is the ultimate love relationship. You
That's
should be in
correct.
love with this person when you get married.
That's correct.
But I got married at the age of, it was on my 26th birthday. So I was 26 years old, and I had no clue what love was. I had never been in love. I had never had my heart broken. Um, I thought love was something really simple. You look in the Bible, it says love is patient, love is kind, does not envy, doesn't keep records of wrong. It's a whole laundry list of what love is.
And you
And
thought that was
so
simple?
that is simple. If I just focus on doing that, I can do that. Um, this
You're a
woman
saint.
she became the woman of my children. Why wouldn't I do this for this person? It was more of
Right.
a duty than something that came out of my heart. And as you know, the way we were raised, we were raised to do the right thing.
Yeah.
So doing the right thing wasn't something that was foreign to us or that we felt was unattainable. We were conditioned to whatever we're doing, you should do the right thing. We weren't always perfect at it, but we made up for our mistakes, and so that's how I live my life. And shortly after we got married, my ex-wife, she looked me in the eye. She said, "Robert, I don't think you're in love with me." And I had no idea what she was talking about. She would say things like, "You don't give me your heart. You don't cherish me."
Mm.
And to me, love was something that I did. It wasn't. And she would say, "I don't want you to do this. I want you to be this." I'm
Mm.
like, this chick is crazy. So for 10 years, I was in denial. I really didn't give her the attention or the respect of what she was trying to say. Until I was 36 years old, I developed this desire to want to be in love. And so I started asking questions. And by that time, she was resentful, obviously, and she felt that it was a slap in the face for me to ask her to help me to fall in love with her. And so we sat down with several counselors, some in the church, some professional outside the church,
Right.
and they couldn't really help us. My question was, how do you fall in love with this chick? How do help me fall in love with this chick. And so I came to the conclusion these people don't even know what love is. How they going to help us find love? So we came to the conclusion that if we're ever going to be in love, it ain't going to be with each other. So she was willing to stay in the relationship. BJ and Alex, BJ was a senior in high school. Alex was a freshman in high school. And I made the decision, you know what? This is, I would rather go and find love than to spend the rest of my life in misery because a lot of married people know, but I felt like I was in a hole. Like I had dug this hole, and to get to back to level ground, she was going to have to help me get up there, or at
Mm.
least allow me the dignity to get out of the hole. But I felt like I'm never going to get out of this hole. I'll I'll always be. I felt like I was behind, and there was nothing I could do to get ahead in our relationship. And so I figured, I know the quickest way to get out this hole is if I'm not in this relationship, there's no hole, period, and I can start over anew. So
Right.
that's what my heart was. We got divorced in 95. I'm sorry, 2005. So we were married 2015. So we married 20 years from 95 to 2015. And immediately I met a woman at a birthday party, we had a mutual friend, and we hit it off. We became best friends instantly. And it was like I felt like I had never experienced anything like this before. I'm sure I had. I had girlfriends prior to getting married, and but this, because I was in this situation for 20 years, this felt
Right.
like it was brand new. And I felt like I fell head over heels in love with this person. I didn't know it until she dumped me for her ex. And so
Yeah.
I felt something that I had never felt in my life. I didn't know what it was. I went to the doctor. I thought I was having some type of one of my internal organs was failing or something. I said, Doc, what is right here?
Sure.
I didn't know what was happening to me. And
Where your heart is supposed to be.
yeah. And so I did some research. I mean, the internet by then, 2015, the internet, was pretty resourceful. And there were a lot of people doing what blogging. I don't know if blogging is even a thing anymore, but there were a lot of bloggers. And so I followed a few blogs about heartbreak. And so they were describing this. And one lady said that it's the same, your body becomes addicted to this person. And when you quit, it's sort of like quitting heroin cold turkey. Your body needs it, and there's no closure. So it's a physical thing, and our physical body triggers our emotions. I mean, our emotions are just chemical reactions in our body. So these chemicals were like the perfect combination that I had never felt before in my life. And the problem with it was I didn't know when it was going to end.
Right.
And so that was the depressing part of it, is when is this going to end? So I developed this concept, and it's called a rudder on a ship. And you know how a battleship is huge. But in order to turn a battleship, a Ferrari can turn on the dime. You turn the steering wheel and the car turns. But a battleship doesn't work like that. You turn the steering wheel, you're gonna start turning eventually. But that little bitty rudder, or those rudders, they're very small compared to the huge ship, but they eventually get the ship to going in the right direction. And what I realize is that my mind is that rudder, and that battleship is my heart. My mind knows that this relationship is over, that I'm not going to get any closure from this woman. That and another part of heartache is that the woman didn't die, so there's no closure. She's still alive, and I can go talk to her, but I'm not going to get the answers that I'm looking for,
unfortunately.
Yeah, so that's the part where you can't get any closure. So I had to, on my computer, every day when I open up my computer, I had these words. It's kind of embarrassing to say.
It's okay. Please share.
It would say, you cannot get answers from her. This relationship, so it was a lot of statements. This relationship is over. She's never coming back. And my heart, I knew that my mind was there. I knew that my mind, because my mind is logical, this is over. My heart wasn't there. Yeah. And so it was going to, just like moving a battleship, it was going to take constant work from my mind until my heart started to make that turn. And so it worked, every day, every minute of every day, I had these thoughts. And this is a biblical concept. There's scriptures that say, do this when you're doing this. So that's what helped me to overcome heartache. But after it was all over, I realized, you know what? While I was loving her, all the stuff that my ex-wife was trying to teach me it made sense. Like, you know how you listen to love songs and it's just a song. I don't even listen to words. But I found myself in the car listening to love songs like, what? Man. Like they was talking to me, like I was at church. And like they were talking, like the singer was coming out of the thing, looking at me in the face and talking to me.
Right.
Now this stuff is starting to make sense. And so I realized that while I was in love, it was the best. It made me feel alive. It's like I realized, I mean, in this biblical, we were created as creatures of love. When we're not actively loving somebody, we're not living in our purpose. We don't have a purpose. And so we're just going through life methodically. But when you love somebody, it adds value to your life, and it's like a flower with sunlight. Sunlight gives the flower life, and so love gives you life, not just your thinking and your heart, but everything about you. Your health is better. You're happier. There's a lot of benefits to loving someone.
Yeah, there is.
My ex-wife used to tell me, when you loving somebody gives you the feeling that you get from loving somebody is 1,000 times better than any feeling you can get from somebody loving you. That didn't make any sense to me because I had never experienced before. I had experienced people loving me.
Correct.
I had no experience of giving, like what she said, giving my heart to somebody else.
Yes.
And so I made the decision after that I have to find love again. I don't want to live the rest of my life without this. I just did it. I did it with the wrong person, but I want to do this again with somebody who's willing to love me back too. That's the other side of the coin. A lot of times people will give themselves to people who have no desire to give themselves to them back. And so that's sort of like this emotional prison. And that's a sad state to be in. So Dr. Love sprung out of that. And I came up with a lot of concepts.
Right. I've seen your work on social media.
Okay. And I see you applauded it. I see you biting my style. I see you using my material. I see you benefiting from it. So
yeah. I am. I'll give you a thumbs up on that. How about that?
But can I share one of the things with you that Dr. Love? So Dr. Love comes up with these concepts and these thoughts and one of them is actual law. Like there's Murphy's Law.
Correct.
There's what are some other laws?
All
I know is Murphy's
Law. Einstein's law of gravity.
All them laws. But there's no laws named after Black people, David. So I came up with the blackest name I could think of, and I named this law Darnell's Law. Let me read Darnell's Law to you, David. And this is something that came to my conclusion through the dating world, because I was dating people and I would find this and find that, but this will explain it. It says Darnell's Law, write it down. Most often you will be marginally interested in the people who are highly interested in you. And the people you are highly interested in will be marginally interested in you. Very rarely are two people highly interested in each other at the same time. If you ever find yourself in this situation, do everything in your power to hold on to it. That's Darnell's Law.
I think there's some truth to that. In my own personal situation with my fiance, we've been together for over a decade.
Damn.
Yeah. I put in the time, consistency,
and still not married.
Still not married.
Keep going.
Hey, we move in the way that we're married. However, we're not in the eyes of the Lord married.
Okay, I hear you.
However, when we were first introduced to one another, I learned later in our relationship that yes, she was interested in me. However, I wasn't interested in her. And then later, I became more interested in her, and she was not really that much into me then. And then it was like a tug of war in the way over the first several years of our relationship. That I'm getting over a divorce, she's getting over a separation of with her fiance at the time, and we're both cautious. We're both concerned about our hearts being broken, and there's this emotional tug of war that we were having. And on top of that, trying to get to know one another and understand one another, and more importantly, respect and trust one another. That was difficult. I can tell you, this relationship was meant to be because of the fact that we put so much into it. And it wasn't easy those first maybe 3 to 5 years. And in these last maybe 5 years, particularly the last, I say 3 or 4, we've just have a certain, I don't want to say comfort, but consistency and understanding. And the love we have for one another is that much stronger today, so much stronger today than when we first met each other or 5 years ago. It's just amazing that the maturity of this respect and love has manifested itself. Doctor.
Okay. So you say all that to say that you're in love.
I would say that I would significantly embrace the fact that, yes, I'm in love with my fiance, without a doubt. And I enjoy giving that love to her. And I believe for men and women, love is different. For men, it's respect plays a large role in the love that they receive from their women. So the level of respect over years has gone up and up and up because the level of trust that she's had in me to be the man that she needs, not that she wants, but that she needs, has prevailed.
So after this book, the nonprofit management book, I'm going to finish writing a book, the Book of Love, where it be
You
where
sure about that?
Huh?
Are you sure about that?
I just said it. So yeah, that's what I'm sure about. What do you mean?
You
Do you know something I don't know? Yes, David, I am going to write the Book of Love. It is based on a theory. It's based on a theory that we, all of us, are 3 people living in one body.
All right, let's hear this. Let's hear this theory, Dr. Love.
When you fall in love with somebody, or when you have any type of interest in somebody,
yes,
you have that interest on different levels with all 3 people. So for the 3 people we're a physical self. You're a physical person. That's who we know. Everybody knows you as your physical self. We can see you. We can recognize you. But people that you know deeper know your spiritual self. It's who you would be, even if you were in a different body. It's got nothing to do with what you look like. It's who you are to your core. It's like who you are in your own head. So if you were to take that essence and put that essence in another body, you would look different, but you'd still be the same person. You would be the person who used to look like you, but now they're in a different body. Does that make sense?
So if I put my essence, my spirit,
you can't. It's not possible.
I'm trying to.
Yes, your spirit,
If my spirit in my brother, I would look different.
Stop, David. You're not even funny. Don't stop trying to be funny.
Got you laughing. Dr. Love.
I'm laughing at you, not with you.
I'm not laughing.
You're not laughing. Laughing is when you open your mouth like that, you show your teeth, and you do the. That's laughing.
Okay, doctor. The third person, Dr. Love.
The third person is a person that's more, I don't know how they exist, but they are part of us that we create when we're children, that helps us to cope with disappointment and trauma. Depending on the severity of our disappointment and trauma, this person that we create could be more of a menace than if we had a mild disappointment and trauma. Everybody had disappointment and trauma as a child.
Of course.
But depending on your level of trauma and disappointment, this person as an adult becomes more dramatic than somebody who didn't have as much trauma and
And Rob,
disappointment.
I've been hearing that a lot in some of these podcasts that talk about relationships,
Hmm.
particularly in the Black community, about the trauma bonding, recovering from trauma, or it's the trauma that our childhood trauma that prevents us to be as loving as we can be. Um, my issue with that is you're right. We all have dealt with some type of trauma in our lives. That's true. Okay, I get that. And to some extent, there is a great severity to it all, and then there isn't so much. However, I see it as a trope. I see it as an excuse for people to lean into that and use it as a means to justify poor behavior.
Sure. And just because you have, let's say you have a pimple, just because you have a pimple and you blame that pimple for stuff doesn't mean you don't have a pimple. You do have the pimple, but like you say, maturity would acknowledge, yes, I do have a pimple,
Correct.
but does this pimple have to dictate how I move? Does it have
Right.
to dictate how I think? Does it have to dictate how I feel? And that's a maturity thing, David. The people everybody has this, but maturity helps us to understand it, because what it is it's basically our child person. So it's giving us advice as if we were still a child. So we don't really need it, but because it's become a part of us and we trust it more than we trust anybody else, it's hard for us to look past it and trust other people. But as you mature as a person, you learn that, hey, this thing, I don't know what to call it. Some women call it a critical inner voice. This critical inner voice is telling me stuff and it's making me feel stuff that's detrimental to my job, to my relationships, to my how I treat my children. So even though it's not going to go anywhere, I can't ignore it. I can't say it doesn't exist, because it does exist and it's real. But maturity says I can't listen to it
Mhm.
because it's not helping me, it's hurting me. And that's a mature thought, David. That's a mature way to look at it. An immature way to look at it is what you said. Run with it. Let's shoot up this place, or yeah, let's cuss these people out.
Mhm.
Or yeah, let's cut him off, block him. To act immature to protect yourself from perceived future trauma is not a very mature stance with it. And so I bring that point up is because when there's a connection between two people, it's through all three of those. And the worst one, obviously, is I call it the what do I call it? Dysfunctional self. When
Sure.
you have your connection with this other person, the high your it's on 10 dysfunctionally, but spiritually it's low and physically it's low. That's the worst type of relationship. So the way I describe it is, what you're looking for is a relationship where you can fall in love with this person on 10 spiritually, because no matter how they look, no matter what the situation is, you love them as a person. Physical attraction is important too, and so is dysfunctional attraction, but it has its place. It should
Sure.
not be the motivating factor, nor
Sure.
should physical attraction be the motivating factor. We know that. You see it on television. Movie stars, they fall in love with each other and get married. 2 months later, they're
The
divorced.
divorce. Yes, exactly.
It's all physical attraction. Like
Right.
they were in a movie together. And dang, look at that. I got to have that. And so what's stopping them from having it? They got all the money in the world. Let's do this. I love
Right.
this. but
Right.
they love what the love that they have has no substance. It's all physical attraction.
Mm.
So that's what this book is all about. The theory, I can read it to you.
Yeah,
It
please
says,
share.
love is a product of our spiritual nature. When we develop a spiritual affinity towards another person, it manifests itself in our physical nature as three attributes: feelings, thoughts, and actions. We call these attributes love, and we use them to describe our love toward others. Although those attributes are proof of the existence of love to both the lover and the love subject, they are not inherently love. They are products of love, evidence that love exists within us. A person can act loving, yes, a person can act lovingly towards another person without actually being in love with that person.
Right.
And anyone can have loving thoughts and feelings towards another person without actually being in love with that person. But the reverse is not possible. A person who is in love with someone will have loving feelings, thoughts, and actions towards that person. We can accomplish love attributes without love, but it's impossible to be in love and not have love attributes. That's the theory of the book.
Okay. Wow, Ron. Have you since found love?
That's a topic that's off the table, David. We said we weren't going to talk about. To answer your question, yes, I have.
Okay. All right. Simple as that.
Simple as that.
So, Robert, again, this has been a very eye-opening experience. This interview.
Mhm.
The one thing that I had found curious about our history together, and we've touched on it again, is your comedic history. And you recently went through an improv class.
That's not even on the docket. What are you talking about?
I told you, just because there's an outline doesn't mean that we will not stray from the outline of the interview.
Okay.
That's
Yes,
the
yes. I
it,
took a improv class.
yes, yes. And how was it?
I had a lot of fun. It was a 2-month class. We met every Monday. It was 8 weeks. I think I started in January. Yeah, January and February. And then it ended. I didn't know, but it ended with a performance, sort of like a recital.
Hmm. Okay, right, right. I saw the video and it was
Mhm.
impressive. The, do you think that taking the no, seriously, I commented on it too.
Okay.
I took notes, copious notes. So, Robert, do you think that taking the improv class enhance your ability to public speak? And would you recommend it for young professionals?
I wouldn't say it enhanced I guess it would in an improv sense. So at the beginning of the class, I really didn't understand improv.
Mhm.
Um, but the teacher, class after class after class, was trying to get us to react and
Right,
not overthink. Because at the beginning of the class, we had to go through exercises where somebody would say something, and then you would have to say something to add to it. And all of us, we were trying to anticipate what the person was going to say before us, even if we didn't know who was going to be next, so that we
right,
can be ready with something clever to say, which really didn't work. It was kind of counterproductive. So we had to train our minds to not think while the other person's talking. We had to react in the moment. And that
right,
was the hardest thing to do, because public speaking is the opposite. You want to be prepared. But
right.
this prepared us to be comfortable being unprepared. So
Wow.
it's a technique to help you that when you're, especially when you're interacting with a crowd, you don't know what the crowd is going to say, and you don't
That's true.
have a library of comebacks. I mean, I guess you could. What's his name? The leader of Great Britain during the war.
Winston Churchill.
Winston Churchill used to practice his ad lib jokes. So he wanted people to think he was ad libbing, but he had practiced those ad lib jokes.
Mm-hmm.
So unless you're Winston Churchill, when you're interacting with people live, it's good to have these techniques in your back pocket to be able to react with your wit and with your understanding of the world.
Okay. Wow. Well, I could do this all night. However, I know you have an early bedtime, so I like to have a got you question.
I thought that was a got you question.
No, it wasn't, Rob. I don't telegraph my questions like that.
Okay, go ahead and got you. Go get me.
So when you were able to, as a teenager, drive on your own, you had a car. That no, don't laugh, because tell us about that first car and how it all came together. Literally came together.
Yeah, it was a Volkswagen Beetle. I still don't know the year of that Beetle.
Sure.
And my father bought it from somebody. It didn't work, and it sat in our garage for months and months. And I begged him to finish that car because I was ready to hit the town. And he procrastinated and procrastinated. I even learned, we didn't have YouTube back then, so I didn't know how to fix it myself. So I did learn how to change my own oil, which was super complicated on a Beetle because it's not just one bolt. I think there were either 5 or 6 of them holding a plate.
Right.
So once you get one off, there's oil coming out, and you still got 4 more bolts to get out. And so it's a very messy job. I don't know who designed that. So you're right. My dad got it painted. He put some Porsche rims on it. It had a moon roof, a sunroof.
Yes. It was a
stick shift.
Yes.
And the battery, I didn't know it, but the battery was always dead. And so I would always have to jump start it.
Mm-hmm.
Or not always, but a lot of times I would jump start it. So whoever was riding with me would push it, and then I would jump start it. And there was a point in time one of my spark plugs came out, so the car was super loud. And I didn't know what was wrong with it.
Right.
And it took me weeks to figure out my spark plug was missing. I mean, the car wasn't powerful at all. It's basically a lawnmower engine, so it wasn't like
it was fun though, Rob. I remember riding with you. It was fun. And it was a bright yellow?
Yeah. Sort of like a tan,
Yeah, it was a fun time. It was a fun time. Plus, we would have to borrow our parents' car, so that wasn't cool, especially just to hang out. So we always had Bobby's car. I think that was did you ever let me drive it or learn how to drive stick?
I'm sure I did.
Yeah, I'm sure, because I think I may have learned how to drive stick on your car, and then later with the Balinoffs, they had stick shifts, and I would drive their cars. But that I wanted to bring that up because that was a fun time. That was a great memory, Rob. That was a very, very good memory. So one last question. Yeah,
Another gotcha question?
This is not a gotcha question. Only one gotcha question. Unless you really enjoyed this one.
No, I don't want a gotcha question.
and you're free to, pass on this, but I was just thinking, to broaden my audience's understanding of the world around them and the people that I interview, I want to ask you a recommendation for the next person I interview. And then I'll do that of that person who they recommend for the next interview.
So the person I recommend you interview, I should know this person, right? Or am I just throwing out a name that
you should know this person, because it's like a recommendation, a personal recommendation that you feel that you know this person, that they'll make a good, they'll make for a good conversation.
Got you. Have you interviewed your mom yet?
No, I have not. And we
should.
talked about it, and we talked about doing it virtually, and we talked about it doing it in person. So she will be my next one of my next big interviews.
Well, let me give you some of the topics.
Okay.
Whoopings. Got to talk about whoopings.
Yes, sir.
The groundbreaking work she did at Kennedy King, her teaching nursing, not just being a nurse, but teaching nursing, and all of the things that she taught to different nurses. I think she taught at some of the local hospitals as well. So there's probably a lot of nurses out there who have benefited from her wisdom.
Good point. Very good point. Okay. Any other questions?
And you should talk to her about black love.
Black love.
Her and your dad met in the 60s.
Yeah.
And had some kids, some badass kids, and
some baby kids.
Moved into, what made them move in that community? Why did they choose right down the block from here?
Right. Yeah, it was sketchy back then, but they made that choice, and it was for the better for the community that we moved in.
And it'd be interesting to hear her viewpoint from about how she felt or what she went through when your dad made the decision to become a Jehovah's Witness.
Very good question.
I know you guys' perspective, but I don't know what her perspective was.
Okay. Yeah, we've had conversations about that, but that'll make for a good conversation. So, Robert Montgomery, Executive Director, Historic Pullman Foundation. I appreciate your time. This was insightful and entertaining.
Okay. When is this going to be on TV?
I think we'll have it streamed April 1st, and no pun intended.
That's in 2 days.
That's correct.
Okay.
We'll get some some short form content from this. I'm sure we've got at least 10 pieces, individual pieces of short form content, and maybe your different theories will be some of that content that goes out.
Sure.
Most likely the short form content will go out after the interview is published, so that we can always link back to the original interview.
And my fit for today is Luther South, representing the high school that I went to.
Excellent.
And just coincidentally, my classmates have been getting together. I started off really small, maybe for the last couple of years, regularly, like once a quarter. And I went to one at the end of last year, and I had a time of my life. I loved it, and I hadn't seen most of those people since high school, which was, we graduated in '87. So I went to one last night. We had one last night at another classmate's house, and I had a ball. I had a really good time hanging out with the people I went to high school with.
That's awesome. And it's great that you still have that connection with your classmates from 1987.
Mm-hmm.
That's fascinating. The one classmate that I still have contact with, I try to avoid as much as possible. Dude's obnoxious. I'm sorry.
That happens to be your brother.
That sure is. Shout out to my brother Douglas. I love you. All right, Mr. Montgomery, say hello to everyone for me. Say hello to the hood for me. Perhaps we'll have you on the show again. Talk a little politics, Chicago politics, maybe.
Possibly. When the book comes out, I'll expect the invitation from you.
Sounds good, sir. Thank you so much. And everyone, I want to thank Robert again for joining me for this incredible conversation. I really appreciate it, Rob, and I'm going to do more of these in the future. The next one will be, I hope and pray, and you'll have to lobby for me, Mrs. Barbara Washington, and get some insight from her. But again, everyone, if you enjoy the content like today's interview, please like, share, hit the notification button, and more importantly, comment. I love to hear what you have to say. Let's keep it tactful, a respectful conversation. Bring your facts, not your feelings. And comments are incredible, and it really what drives me to do better and to bring out more content just like this. So again, on behalf of my special guest, Robert Montgomery, there in Chicago, go White Sox. We'll see
Go
you.
Cubs.
We will see you the next time. Take care, Rob.